I've got some sad news. Yeah, that's right. WAPO, they're facing some more staff layoffs after the ones they already experienced last year. Not to mention the journos there, they have the sads because one of their top editors just got fired and they're bringing in four dudes to take her place. And I'm all here for it. Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side. Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you're on YouTube, consider becoming a channel member. All right, it couldn't have happened to a nicer group of people, that being the journalists and columnist staff over at the Washington Post, where democracy dies in darkness, where soon after Jeff Bezos, that's right, the Amazon billionaire, shortly after he purchased it, he gave them a mandate to promote the news not through the lens of objectivity, but through the lens of subjectivity, specifically the woke left, where every straight white male is a cisgendered bigot, where people of color can do no wrong, where we should believe all women unless it's Riley Gaines, and on and on and on. And I'm not crying about it. I'm not crying that they're in turmoil, that this is going on. I have no sympathy for them. Now, to find out what's going on, I have gone to the Post Millennial. This is what they say. Washington Post audience cut in half. Paper losing millions every year. Staff demand more diversity in response. And they say the Washington Post is in trouble, according to a new report out from Vanity Fair. The weekend kerfuffle that saw the departure of Sally Busby as executive editor was only compounded on Monday when staff gathered for a meeting, only to find that she had been replaced by two white men. I've heard reports that it's actually four, but continuing on. Busby had been leading the paper since 2021, so she hadn't been there long. So she was there when the trouble had already started, and she was, I guess, given a mandate to figure it out, and she didn't. She failed, so now she's gone, which is what you should do in a company. Continuing on, the Post CEO and publisher Will Lewis told staff that it was time to take decisive, urgent action to set us on a different path. One reporter asked Lewis whether any women or people of color were interviewed and seriously considered for either of these positions. That question, Vanity Fair writes, elicited applause. Busby was the first woman executive editor at the Post. And I think that's so funny. So one guy says, "Hey, did you interview any women or people of color?" Clapping seals, absolutely preposterous. Continuing on. Others question why the interim executive editor, Matt Murray, was brought on board when that created a scenario where, as one reporter put it, we now have four white men running these newsrooms. Murray, former editor-in-chief at the Wall Street Journal, will see the paper through the presidential election and will then be replaced by Robert Winnett, deputy editor of the Telegraph Media Group. Murray will lead the Lewis's third newsroom concept once the presidential election is over. Murray, Winnett, and Dave Shipley, who helms the opinion section, will each report to Lewis. Lewis didn't just replace Busby, but has determined that the progressive paper will have three newsrooms: news, opinion, and a news section that Lewis described as a third newsroom. In a memo announcing Busby's departure obtained by Vanity Fair, Lewis said that the third newsroom will have a separate mission. The aim is to give the millions of Americans who still feel traditional news is not for them, but still want to be kept informed, compelling, exciting, and accurate news where they are and in the style that they want. So, oh gosh. So this is about the new newsroom. It says that they would use video storytelling, would use AI, and have different subscriber models. Previously, he told staff, we highlighted the need to move away from the traditional one-size-fits-all approach in the news media industry and focus on creating news for a broader range of readers and customers. Okay, problem with this. It is not WAPO's job to create the news. It is their job to report the news. And this is what I always say when I hear a journo or a political commentator who is just pretending to be a journo, whatever the case may be, people like Taylor Lorenz. It is not your job to create the news. It is your job to report on the news. Absolutely bizarre that this is their take, but that's how they feel. It's mind-blowingly arrogant. And says staffers apparently weren't happy. They wanted things to stay how they were, with diversity and social justice at the core of the newsroom's operations. Don't we need brilliant social journalists and service journalists as embedded in our core product to make sure that people are actually reading the thing that's our at the center of the mission of the Washington Post? But apparently that's just not happening, and staying on the current course would only lead to more dead ends. Per Lewis, you haven't done it. I've listened to the platitudes. Honestly, it's just not happening. Per the Post, like most news organizations, the Post has lost readers, a decline more acute because the Washington based outlet boomed with the interest in politics during the Trump administration. The Post website had 101 million unique visitors a month in 2020 and had dropped to 50 million at the end of 2023. I actually don't believe it's in the millions, but whatever. The paper is losing money, losing readers, and Lewis is willing to forgo the diversity and social justice demands of the reporters. So, man, can't you just see their heads exploding when they heard that? I've heard the platitudes. For one thing, what is even a service reporter? What does that even mean? It's just another stupid, made up title from these egotists who think not that their job is to report the news, but actually to define the news for you, to actually stand up and wag their finger when they think you're getting a little out of hand. That's what this is. And kudos to Lewis to standing up to his people. He should have done it a long time ago, quite frankly. And I don't think this third newsroom is going to help them, because you already see we have to create the news. No, your job is to report on it. And yes, I get it. They're going to use video. What they all then, quite frankly, that's all that a newspaper needs. It needs a newsroom, it needs a commentary room, and if you want, a video. So kudos to him for at least making a logical transition to how the newsroom works, and good on him for outright saying, listen, we tried it your way. It didn't work, because it's not worked. The media has lost the trust of the American people. We saw this, how they spiked the ball with the Hunter Biden laptop story, how they called the Covington Catholic schoolboys racist, how even going back as far as the 90s, how they allied with the Atlanta newspaper Zeitgeist to frame Richard Jewell for the Atlanta Olympics explosion that happened. It's just absolutely insulting that they want to get on some high horse and say we should report based on social justice and blah 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 and whatever the flavor of the month is. No. No one wants to hear it. For one thing, there's no such thing as social justice. There is just justice. Justice does not have a need for an adjective or a pronoun. It's absolutely silly that they thought it should go that far. And quite frankly, I wish I could have seen the look on their faces. I honestly do. I can't imagine the the shock when he said, I've heard those platitudes. Because quite frankly, like I said, that's all they are. They are just platitudes that no one cares about, that outside of that newsroom. This is what happens when you this is what happens when you cater to a movement that doesn't have any money. This is what I say. I don't understand why the film industry, the publishing industry, the comic book industry, the news industry, why they cave to these whiny brats on social media. Oh, sure, it gets them clicks. It gets them um, it gets them clicks. It gets them looks every once in a while, but then it doesn't go any further. It's just they want it, because quite frankly, these whiny SJWs that they care for, or that they cater to, don't have money. They're too busy buying soy mocha lattes at Starbucks every hour, not just every day or every other day. Listen, I like coffee as much as the next person. I'm guilty of spending too much money on coffee, but these social justice warriors, they just buy all their all their soy, they get water out of streams and all this other nonsense, and that's where they're spending all their time and money, and that's why they have to keep living in their parents' spare bedroom or basement. Catering to them didn't do anything. There's no such thing as the modern audience. It's a myth. It's made up, and that goes for the press as well, whatever you want to call them, the mainstream media, the corporate press, the woke press, whatever it is, they have lost their way. And quite frankly, I think the press has always been corrupt. If you go back as far as the Revolutionary War, how much of the press in the United States sided with the dictators across the pond at the time? It's just mind-blowingly dumb how we always held these journalists as, oh, they're the fourth or fifth estate, depending on who you ask, and they're just going to hear Walter Cronkite, yay. Walter Cronkite was a liar who slated a lot of his news stories. Look up the history of all of the reports he got wrong. He told so many lies. He misrepresented so much the news. The New York Times, the paper of record, look at how many stories they got wrong. Like I mentioned earlier, from Hunter Biden laptop story, to Biden's past, to Trump's past, um, to the Covington kids, to Kyle Rittenhouse. All of these people are victims of a corrupt media when they should have gone after the people in power, but they didn't. And it's just disgusting. And now they're going to whine because they're not getting their way. Boo freaking who. Grow up and grow a pair. Life isn't always about you, and you need to get over it. Journalists want to. It's kind of funny. Journalists used to rail against what they called gonzo journalism. So a reporter who's actually might be involved in the incident. Now that's all they do. I think it's so funny. Christine Amanpour, in the trenches. No, she's happy to flirt with dictator Vladimir Zelensky, but not actually give you the news. Absolutely stunning that this continues to be an issue in the United States. We need to have reforms. Now, the press shouldn't be shut down. I don't think that the press should be under some sort of licensing system or anything like that, but they do need reforms. We need to get better, more competent reporters and better and more competent editors for those places, because it has gotten out of hand and out of control to the point where independent media like The Blaze or Megyn Kelly or the Whitfield Report or Monday Mayhem, all of that stuff, whatever it is, or Morning Mayhem, whatever that independent media is, they're getting more trust that the mainstream media has lost. And it's all because of the media's own making. They have embarrassed themselves. They have just thrown off their journalistic ethics and whatnot. I mean, think about it. Jeffrey Toobin was caught being inappropriate on a Zoom call or whatever it was, some sort of video call with his colleagues. He got fired from the magazine he wrote for, but CNN immediately hired him back. So no, I don't want to hear how the media is our moral betters. They are nothing but an industry that is just after money like any other one. If you like that video, be sure to give it a like, share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment, and of course, subscribe. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications whenever I post a new video, and consider becoming a channel member where you get all kinds of exclusive perks, including a once-a-week members first look at a video that I release. And if you're watching on Rumble, BitChute, or Odyssey, and you're like, hey, I want to support you, but I don't want to do it through big tech, don't blame you. Click on my locals page. The link is in the description. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on StudioJake.
'Cause I've been living life right like I